Happy New Year, and welcome into another episode of Popcorn for Breakfast. The gang's all here today. We've got Kirk. We've got PFB contributor, writer extraordinaire, Stefano, back with us today. And it is a new year, but we can't jump fully into the new year before we say goodbye to the year in film that's behind us. Was it a good year? Was it a bad year? Was it a mid-year? I don't know. We'll have to talk about that a little bit. But we are going to be taking part in the time-honored and hallowed tradition of top 10 movie lists. Everybody does it. We've got ours for you today. We're going to get right into it right now. Top 10 films of 2023 coming your way. Let's get into it.
Is Popcorn for Breakfast, presented by St. Louis Area Smoothie Kings. Now, here are your hosts, Cam and Kirk.
Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Popcorn for Breakfast. As always, I am Cam. With me, we got my fabulous co-host, Kirk.
I was hoping you'd say, sometimes I am Cam, and sometimes this is Kirk.
That's right.
Just to keep things fresh and salty here in 2024.
It's true. We kind of alternate back and forth. But with us also, one of our favorite people to have on the show, Stefano, is with us. Stefano, thanks for being here, man.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me back.
And gentlemen, we are here today to do something that everyone does. I don't know where this started. Does anybody know? We need like an oral history of where, I feel like in film more so than any other like hobby, maybe books book people do this too. It's like a top 10 list of the year.
Yeah.
It's something you have to do if you're, a cinephile, and we do it every year, and it takes years off of Kirk's life. It really does. It's stressful.
It probably took me 30 hours to create my top 10 list. I looked at it one day a week for the past month, and I said, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I just don't know.
Kirk, you gotta rank throughout the year. Like, I have the spreadsheet. I have it Jan 1. Well, there's no releases on the first day, but
true. After
I watch a movie, give it a little score, give it a ranking, and then you have only maybe 5 hours then to break some ties.
Yeah, I need someone to create a macro for me for my Google list. Yeah. And every time I rate something higher, it just automatically just ranks it for me. I think that's the only way I'll survive 2024.
It's good. The way that I did it this year was similar to what Stefano's describing, where I started a list in Letterboxd in January that said top 10 films 2023.
Okay.
And I would just add movies as they came and move them up and down. And then once there were 10 and the bottom one got removed, I just took it off the list and I just kept rolling. And then eventually I had my list of 10.
Did you keep that list private?
I did. I kept it private on Letterboxd. It's still private to this day, but I think as soon as this episode goes live tomorrow, I'll publish it so that everybody will know at that point.
Well, thank you for your tricks, gentlemen. I will be using them immediately.
I don't know if it will make it more or less stressful, but it does. I don't know. It did actually work for me, which I was skeptical. I was worried I would get to the end of the year and be looking at my list of 10 and be like, I've terribly destroyed this. Like this is an enormous mistake, but I didn't. I liked it. So here we are. So let's talk about 2023. This was a year in film that was interesting, to say the least. We had kind of like, first of all, we had the writers and actors strike, which really kind of threw projects towards the end of the year that were supposed to come out into utter madness. So Dune, we're supposed to have already seen Dune Part 2. There's a number of other films that got delayed this year due to the writers and actors strikes. So the volume of content was interesting because at the beginning of the year, it was like, we've got this huge COVID backlog that is sort of like built up. And so we've got all these huge movies that are going to be coming out. And we had Barbenheimer and all these huge event type cinema movies. But then as the year went on, that list kind of thinned out because projects were getting pushed. When you guys think about this year in film, compared to some of the more recent years, like 2022, we'll leave out 2020 and 21. But
why? What's wrong with those years?
Nothing in particular. How do you feel about it? Do you have good feels, bad feels? Like what's the overall gist? Stefano, you can kick us off.
Let's do it. I think it's been one of the stronger years in film in years. And a lot of it, I can kind of gauge that when I make these lists. And while most of the scores are arbitrary, and ranking movies at the end of the day is arbitrary.
Yes.
But when I look at what I have in top 25, top 20 compared to the last few years of the drop offs there's much more of a gradualness to this year. I would say up to my 18 or 20 that I could have any of those in my top 10 on a different day. So, it's hard for me to say that last year or the year before. So I think this year, and then also if we're talking about acting performances and all of that as well, there's no room for so many good performances. And I'm sure we'll get into that later, but super strong in my opinion.
Yeah, Kirk, where are you at on this?
I feel that for me, every other year is a good year in film of my tracking, and I think last year was the good year as far as pacing. And at the off years, I think this is an off year. It's still good, but it's not strong. It's like there are some good highlights from this year that I liked, but I think I liked last year better as overall.
Yeah, I feel like with last year, what I feel like because I remember being in last year and being like, man, this is a really good year for film. But I think really, as I look back on it now, I feel like it was a really top-heavy year in film where like the top 5 to 10 movies were spectacular.
Yes.
But the depth wasn't really there. And this year, I maybe feel like there's not as much depth at the top, but depth through to the like Stefano was saying, like the 20s, 30s, you can go down that list and find a lot of really high quality films. Whereas like last year, the drop off after 10 was like drastic.
Yeah. I feel like there's so many movies out there that are going to make Best Picture that were only good for 50% of the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Even though I would still give them higher than a 50%, I just know that there's one movie glaringly on my list, even in my top 10, that I'm like, the first half of this movie is perfect, and the second half struggles.
Interesting.
And if it had only had a fully digested life, then we could have seen this as the number one, just clean slate. So I see a lot of that in the films this year.
What a tease, Kirk.
I know.
Kirk is telling us right now that one of his top 10 movies is only half good. So I cannot wait to get into this.
Yeah, we have to do it. All right. Well, without further ado, let's get into it. We'll do the first. We'll start at the bottom, and the way this is going to work is we'll go through a cycle here. We'll kind of snake draft it, and we'll start at 10. If you have a movie that's on one of the other person's list, after they're done talking about it, you should talk about it. So even if they had it at 10 and you had it at 4, go ahead and talk about it so we don't end up, so like we can get all our commentary about that particular film out, and then we'll continue to kind of recap as we go.
So chat about the movie when it gets brought up.
Yeah, and let us know where it's at in your list.
I'll let you know immediately, Stefano, about that 50-50 movie.
Yeah,
Good,
I can't wait. It's going to be great. All right, well, let's start at 10. Stefano, as the visitor in the clubhouse here, kick us off.
You're kidding me. All right, I'll take it. So it's tough because there's always recency bias, especially at this time of year.
Yes, there
seeing
is.
Movies that are allegedly higher quality because of Academy Awards and all that, but after thinking through all these, I felt very comfortable with one of my most recent watches, The Iron Claw, at number 10. So that's the, tragic true story about the Von Erich brothers and the wrestling family. And what really blew me away was, I didn't know much about it going into it. I didn't know the tragedy the family faced, the entire story about that, because I don't, know too much about the professional, wrestling world. So it blew me away, not only because it was told in a very interesting way, but it just had so many phenomenal acting performances. We had Zac Efron, who everybody was surprised would get a role like this. We had the Zac Efron and Robert Pattinson comparisons coming up a lot recently because Robert Pattinson was of Twilight fame and he kind of came out of nowhere to become one of today's best actors. And then we had Zac Efron of High School Musical fame kind of stepping up and taking on such a serious role. So
yeah, I like that pick. I actually have this at 8.
Wow.
I have the Iron Claw at 8. So I was I was with you. Like, wasn't sure if it was recency bias or what, but I kind of sat with it for a little bit, and I agree. I just think this movie, it it goes about the storytelling in a really thoughtful way. And I think that I'm kind of a sucker for like boxing and wrestling movies just because the metaphors are like rich, man. Like the like picking yourself up off the mat, the cinematography around the ring. There's been so many great movies about boxing and wrestling and things like that you could see influences from Raging Bull. You could see influences from all these great films built in here. And I think really more than anything, I was just surprised by this movie because I felt like the performances were so good at the top end. Zac Efron, Best Actor nominee at the Oscars. I think that's coming, and that's like that's crazy. So. That's crazy. Not because he's a bad actor, but just like he hasn't gotten a chance to do this. And it was it's a crazy story. It's just a really interesting movie. Totally took me by surprise.
I've been waiting for Zac Efron to get an acting nomination since the final scene in 17 again with him and Matthew Perry when he is in the courtroom reading off that blank piece of paper, spoiler alert, and he's just crying. It's so incredible. Stuck in my mind. There's a big asterisk next to this because I have not seen this movie. I haven't had a chance to see it. So bravo to your picks, gentlemen. I think it feels like he's been angling professionally to try to get roles that are a little bit more deep study acting roles. Like I think about that, like instead of Baywatch. I don't understand.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think he wears a lot of that, like, attractive, like stud actor who only gets cast in movies for their looks, and I think he's trying to shed that a little bit. And I think this is a pretty darn good audition for future roles because I thought he was awesome. All right, Kirk, number 10.
My number 10?
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, I'm nervous. I'm worried you guys are going to judge me.
We will judge you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
But we'll only talk bad about you behind your back.
I'm hoping this is the 50% one. Hopefully.
Perfect. This is where you guys like cut into your own chat room and you disappear from my screen and here I go. All right, my number 10, this is a curveball. I think my whole list is a curveball, but this is a very shocking one as I went through my list because it shocked me. I want to talk about Chris Pine in Dungeons and Dragons, ladies and gentlemen. This movie, every week I find myself, for the first like 6 weeks after this movie, I found myself texting Cam, Jonathan, and finding the best GIF that had been created because that movie brought me so much joy. And I think a lot of my movies this year in particular were ones that brought me a little bit of enlightenment or joy in my life. And this one was one of them. I had no idea walking into this movie that I would be so enthralled, so pleased. It could have easily went the other way and just fell flat on its face. But if you got a chance to see this in the movie theater, it was clearly and truly a wonderful, wonderful time. If you didn't get a chance to see it, I hope you got to watch it at home on VOD. I think it's on Peacock right now, Peacock or Paramount Plus, and it's truly just a razzle dazzle time. I can't give this thing enough stars. It's just so much fun. So I doubt either of you have that on your top 10. Am I wrong?
No, I do not. I don't have it.
I haven't even seen it, and it's not intentional. I've been wanting to see it, and I'm actually on social media. It's making the rounds of like people are bringing it back up now that we're kind of wrapping up the year. So you're not in the by yourself on that, Kirk.
Yeah, it's the top of the pleasant surprise category. I feel like to me, like it's the one that I was like grumbling heading into the theater because we like, it was like March or February and it's like a total slog at that point when it comes to movies. And Kirk and I were like, well, we got to review something. Here's this movie. And we found ourselves just laughing hysterically throughout the whole thing. And it was like, wow, that came out of absolutely nowhere. There's no reason for that to have been as funny as it was and as good as it was.
Absolute home run. I highly recommend. Number 10 for me.
I like that pick. Pick a lot. I'm going to try to talk into the microphone going forward because I just like...
Nope, I want you to walk across the room.
I just like leaned forward and didn't. Okay, my number 10. I'm going with John Wick Chapter 4. I don't know. I need to do a rewatch to really get my bearings on like which of the John Wicks is my favorite at this point because I was trying to think about it, and I think in general I just need to kind of like rewatch them all stacked on top of each other to get a gist for that. But I think this one is up there, and I think in terms of style and aesthetic, cinematography, this one is pretty high up there. There's some really cool scenes. There's some really crafty editing. There's a lot of cool dynamic contrast with the colors, the locations, the editing, the shot that everybody shares on social media, the aerial shot where it looks like you're playing like a third person video game, and he's using those like incendiary rounds of that shotgun. Sick. I mean, me and Kirk saw it in the theater together, and we legit looked at each other and we're like, yes, like this is it. This is peak. Yep. So, I was surprised to have this movie on my list because I don't know. It's just like, I love the Jonathan.
The Jonathan Wick.
I was thinking Jonathan, but I love
that's the next parody. Jonathan Wick.
Jonathan.
The bird flies again.
I love that. I absolutely love that. But anyway, the John Wick series, I love it, but it never makes my top 10 list because I think it's just like, I don't know. It's like genre bias for me. Action movie. Right. I don't know. It just never has. And so I'm glad that it's here, and I'm happy to put it at number 10. I'm proud of that. All right.
Stefano, was John Wick 4 on your list?
It was not, but I just want to tie this into our conversation we were having at the start about if this is a strong year or not. I'm very high on John Wick 4. I think it's incredible for everything you just said. And it's number 27 on my list.
Hey, yeah.
That's how and I absolutely loved it. It's probably like my highest rated action movie. So just, everything you said, outstanding. We'll see if they keep making Jonathan Wick movies.
Very nice. Jonathan Wick. Oh man.
As it so happens, it was number 7 on my list.
Hey, nice. So all right. Bravo. So I'm not the only one giving John Wick a little love.
Of course
I like it. All right, let's go with Kirk for number 9, and then I'll start number 8.
Okay.
Yeah. Go for it.
My number 9, again, I feel like the bottom half of my top 10 are just purely joy. Glad they did it. Glad they were successful at it. And this is clearly goes to Super Mario Bros. I mean,
wow.
Got to give it to them.
Off the top rope.
I feel like a lot of movies from the beginning of the year somehow ended up on my list. Is someone laughing? Stefano, are you laughing?
He's laughing hysterically.
I'm not laughing.
He is.
Are you laughing?
Wait, did you guys review it on the show?
We did.
We absolutely.
Kirk gave it a really high score.
What were your kernels on it? I'm trying to remember.
I think 14 out of 10. No, I don't know what it was.
I think I gave it in the 7s.
Mine was high.
I'm just curious.
Kirk's was high.
Mine was very high.
Yeah.
That movie
the
did everything.
Yours.
Stefano wants to kill me. I think that this movie really, really did exactly what it needed to do. It had a big homework assignment in the sense that there are a lot of ways that it could make a lot of people mad for dumb reasons, and it went straight through all the garbage of, you get all these movies like that throw in like their own political biases, like about games. Like this is what was happening with the Super Mario Brothers coming in, like who's the hero, who's not, and they did exactly what they needed to do from top to bottom. The gameplay, the humor, and the standout Peaches song right in the middle, like this is what gave me life in 2023. Like being able to take my kids to that movie and who are just on fire for Mario and fam right now. It gave me so much joy. And there we go. My number 9.
I like it. I wouldn't put it in my top 10, but I do like it. And I do think that they took a very thoughtful approach with it. I think that it was like very much, they were thinking of all the fans, and they were like, we have to do right by them because people have been clamoring for this for a long time. And I thought that the way they went about it was safe is the wrong word, but because I do think that they still wanted to make sure that they made a good movie that represented everybody, but they did it in a really thoughtful way. No doubt. All right.
It looked really good.
It did, man. They made Mario World come to life in a very vibrant way.
They did.
All right. My number 9. I'm going with Maestro. And people are hating on this movie. I've seen the rounds on social media calling it Oscar bait, talking about prosthetic noses and whatnot. And I would say that in general, the term Oscar bait is lazy, but it's also I can see where people come from when it comes to biopics. People get really like myself as well. We've talked about it on the podcast before. When you get like a very boilerplate biopic that's like the same formulaic thing, like it, and you know that it's just people angling for awards. I think King Richard kind of falls into this category. Yeah. There have been a few over the years. I get that, but this movie is not that. This movie is not a boilerplate biopic. This movie is a lot of things. it's not a perfect movie by any means, but I think it's super ambitious in the way that it's told. And I think that, the main complaint I've seen about this movie is like, this movie has nothing to say. It's not saying anything about being like a tortured genius. It's not saying anything about relationships. It's not saying anything about like, being in this complex relationship where, it's like you're having affairs with other people. Like, and I would say that I view this more as a portrait pick, that it's like, this is Lenny Bernstein, and it necessarily doesn't have to be anything more than that. I think there's a reason that some of the stuff is downplayed, because it's just like, he took the route of, I want to tell the story of Lenny Bernstein. And, that's the route that he went. And it doesn't always work, but when it does work, it's like, it's really captivating. Like, you can't take your eyes off of it. The cinematography, the acting performances from both Bradley Cooper and Carey Mulligan, who both were standouts. Like, that's for me what puts it over the top. I think some people's complaints about it are totally valid, and I can see how they arrive at that. I just don't view it in that same way.
That's fantastic. What do you think, Stefano?
Yeah, no, I was probably a little more mixed on it. I think I agree with everything you said, Cam. And I think something else, I know a lot of people are talking about Bradley Cooper's ego. While it is there, I'll say that he had like the wherewithal to let Carey Mulligan be the best part of this movie. Yes. And agree or disagree, I think her performance just absolutely made the movie. So any hesitations somebody might have is you come back to that performance and it's absolutely phenomenal. And that a lot of that has to do with Cooper's directing and playing off of each other in scenes. And I thought that was phenomenal.
Yeah, she's unbelievable.
It's so true. Like, that is such a good point that he really did let her be the star of this film. And no doubt she gets nominated. Is this on your top 10 list?
It's not on my top 10.
Okay. It is on mine.
Where's that?
It's number 5.
Ooh, top 5.
And ironically, it's also the movie that I was talking about, 50-50.
Perfect.
That's fair.
I want to hear about what 50, because I have a 50% of this movie I like as well.
I like the first 50% more than anything in this world. It is fast. It is quick. You are fully immersed, much like another film on, I think we'll definitely share this other film. It's the first half of this film is shot like it takes place during that time, like during the 50s and 60s. Like it is picture perfect on how the tone of the actors run through, the tone of the storytelling, the black and white. And then when it shifts to quote unquote present day to follow the rest of his story, it drops the ball, unfortunately.
That's hilarious you say that. This is why I'm on here, because I felt like the opposite.
Okay.
I agree with, like, they did the cinematography, the costuming, all of it was phenomenal. I just think it was something about the story it was telling felt a little bit like it found its footing at the 50% mark, and then it told the rest of that story because it kind of let those portions of it breathe a little more. But I totally get what you're saying as well. But hey, that's why we're,
and I'm in the middle of both of you. Like, I feel I can see it all. So that's very interesting.
It's funny because I loved the stylization of it so well in the first half. I love that we have the exact opposite feeling on that. That's pretty cool because it's the same film. So keep that in mind, people. Stefano's not running around and punching me in the face as fast as he can.
That's right.
We can have differing opinions on the same movie.
Amazing. Yeah. What a novel concept. All right, Stefano, what's your number 9?
My number 9, I'm assuming it might be, I don't know if you guys got around to seeing this. My number 9 is Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yeah.
Martin Scorsese's latest. This was one that was very high on my list and figured it would stay there, but so much more came out along the way and it just bumped it back a bit, but I knew it needed to be in my top 10. It is, first of all, phenomenal trailer, but we were teased for so long and it finally came out, and I just thought it was such an important story to be told. And I know we're so used to a lot of Scorsese's mafia-based movies, and as phenomenal as those are and as amazing as the acting is in those movies, this felt like Scorsese's finally kind of taken a back seat a little bit and letting a different story take the driver's seat, and based off of a book of the same name, it was, telling a very important story about, taking over land, selling oil, stealing oil, these natives gone missing, all of that. And with that, you get a really, really compelling story with amazing acting. DiCaprio is amazing as always. And De Niro plays, honestly, besides Raging Bull, I thought about this hard, but probably my favorite performance of his besides that. It's a super nuanced, super like maniacal De Niro without being too showboaty. And I just loved his performance, especially in combination with a very interesting DiCaprio character. Someone might call a more of a dull character, but I found it to be super compelling, super funny, at points because of DiCaprio's character, super heartbreaking. And I loved it. It was long. It was very long, but thought it was great.
Yeah. I actually left this movie out in the cold on my top 10.
Oh, wow.
Because, well, I really liked it, and I really liked the story more than anything. I love the story, and I think I agree with you, Stefano, that it's super important, and I think that just really interesting. I mean, it's like such an underreported part of American history. As someone who's gone through the public school system, like we didn't learn about
not at all.
I mean, not even a little tiny bit. So that's why I think I applaud it for sure. I think at times, because the story was so good, that Scorsese kind of used that as a crutch, and not, I mean, that sounds really harsh, but that's not really the intent. Meaning that he loved the source material so much that he's like, other people will see how good this is, and this thing just makes itself that good. And so sometimes I felt him kind of milking it a little bit at times in terms of like drawing things out a little bit on certain scenes, certain characters, that I felt like, why are we going so far into this or that or the other? And also the mystery aspect, I wanted more of that. Like I want it to feel like a whodunit, because I think the impact would be so much better. But I mean, the cinematography, the acting performances, Lily Gladstone, Robert De Niro, Leo DiCaprio, really good. It's just, I feel like with modern Scorsese, I find this, like I felt similarly about Wolf of Wall Street and The Irishman, like his more recent films, they just feel like he loves the source material so much that he doesn't give it that discerning edit that I think we've seen earlier in his career that makes it sharper.
Yeah,
it almost feels like he like picks a runtime.
Yeah, it does. No, it really does. You're right.
I totally get that.
Yeah, he gives too much information. He doesn't trust his audience the longer he's alive.
He's like, people are getting dumber, and he's probably right about
yes.
that.
Yes, the audience the audience surrogate was Leonardo DiCaprio.
It was his character in the movie. That's what.
This is you peasants. Killer's got a high rating on mine, even though did we rate this on the podcast? I can't remember.
No, we didn't.
We didn't yet. So this got a high one for me. I put it at spot number 4 overall.
Awesome.
Because I love Scorsese. I loved Leo. Same thing as Cameron said. There was too much of the hand was given. I needed more of a reveal. I wish that we didn't know all of those things up front that Leo was doing and agreeing to. If he was agreeing to all of the nefarious things he was agreeing to, spoiler alert, then I wish that that would have been a flashback later on in the last 5 minutes of the movie versus playing them out as they kind of occurred. So that was my little struggle with it.
Gotcha. All right, we're on to number 8, and it's my turn. But my number 8 was already given, The Iron Claw. Mm-hmm. So we are back to Stefano again for your number 8.
My number 8, The Holdovers. This was another one I had very high up, but I wrote a very in-depth review on it for Popcorn for Breakfast, so you can read that if you want more. So I'll keep this one short. Just one of those, it was, you were going into it kind of expecting this heartwarming movie just based on Giamatti being in it, the setting, the way it was filmed. And that's exactly what you get. And you also get so much more. It's a super heartwarming movie. It's shot so well, obviously shot to look like the late 70s. The soundtrack was amazing. I think I talked about this too in the review, but Divine Joy Randolph gave such a gut-wrenching, phenomenal performance, and will likely not only hear her name as a nomination, but potentially as an Oscar winner. And Giamatti, of course, phenomenal as always. Sessa, first-time actor, phenomenal in it. It's a great story. It's just well done all around. And honestly, a movie anybody would like. Your dad, your brother, your sister, your younger brother.
Yeah.
Your cousin, your step.
No,
your second
actually,
cousin
cousins,
once removed.
A cousin of mine didn't like it. So.
There you go. There you have it. The line stops at cousin. Kirk, did you have the holdovers on your list anywhere?
I absolutely did. In fact, I loved it so much. I made sure that my wife was going to watch it. She's watching it literally right now as we're recording this. She texted me. She's like, "Is it streaming? I heard it was streaming on your podcast." And I was like, "This is how she texts really close up to her face." Yes. And I said, "Yeah, you can watch it on Peacock right now." And it's definitely on my list at number 3.
Whoa, we're gonna get Kirk's full top 5 before we even get there. That's crazy.
I don't think you will. I've got a couple of curveballs up there, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, this film just blew me out of the water. I think I don't know if I texted both of you, both Stefano and Cam, or just Cam, or whoever, the world. I don't care. I said that it was absolutely lovely, absolutely delightful watching this film through and through, reminiscent of Dead Poets Society, kind of vibes with boys boarding schools and such, but without the real tragedies that movie encounters. But this film, The Holdovers, was just really wonderful to see all these people's different walks of life come together, forced together by happenstance, and really just see how they could learn and grow from one another. That sounds so cheesy, but it's exactly what it was. It's really cheesy. It's really lovely.
Yeah, I agree. I like this movie. I had it at 7 on my list. 7, The Holdovers. Alexander Payne. That's all. That's all. He's got a fan in me. If he has 1,000 fans, I'm one of them. If he has one fan, I might be that fan. Nebraska, really like that movie. The Descendants, majorly underrated movie. Warm, like he really gets deep with the emotion, and that's what I love about it. So great pick, The Holdovers. Stefano had it at 8, Kirk had it at 3, I had it at 7.
Is that our first consensus?
I believe so.
I've been keeping track. Yes, it is. The only one that all 3 of us had on our top 10. Yep.
There you go. All right, Kirk, what's your number 8?
My number 8 has not been picked yet.
Nice.
I don't know if it's on your guys's. We'll find out here in a moment. Is Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Not on my list.
Not on my list either.
All right, well, sad for you guys today.
Sucks to be you.
I hope this is a film that will stand the test of time. I worry about, even though it came out months ago, I worry that it might have a recency bias only on 2023 with a lack of big, good Marvel films in theaters. But I really do think that if the CGI holds up, because it's a movie that is surrounded by a completely CGI character, if the CGI holds up in the world of the aesthetic, then I really think the storytelling will hold on to it as well. I loved the villain. They got the villain right. The Bradley Cooper, his second time mentioned in my list today, is phenomenal in the voice acting. Didn't even know it was him in the first film. He was coming out. I was like, wait a second. That sounds oddly familiar. I can't believe they got some famous actor to do this. And now we have him in his third installment, solo Guardians installment of this. And I just think it was really, really wonderful to explore this relationship, and took me aback to be like, why do I care? Why am I crying for a digital raccoon in the theater full of 200 other people? Like, that is how you know that you are good at storytelling, and that how you know that what you've built is so strong. So it gets number 8 for me.
I like it. All right. So we're back. We're at 7 now, and I was supposed to start 8, but I had the Iron Claw. So we're actually back at Stefano to start off number 7.
Well, we can go to your 6 just so you can talk first on a movie. I don't want to potentially run into another one of yours.
Well, I'll go first on 6. On 6.
Hopefully I don't take your number 6.
If you do, I'll just leave. No, okay. It's okay. Go ahead.
Sounds good. My number 7 was May December.
Okay, and not my number 6, so we're okay.
Perfect. We're perfect. Okay, great. May December, I remember this one being talked about early on in the year because we had another Todd Haynes movie, directed Carol, which is one of my absolute favorites from that year, and it's probably one of my favorites of all time. And it came off. I know that early chatterings were like, oh, it's kind of like, people thought it might be kind of like a Gone Girl, like kind of one of those weird, like thriller type movies that, and while there's some of those elements in those movies, like a Gone Girl or a Girl on the Train, the girls, the transportation in the girl movies.
Yeah, exactly. One of my favorite subgenres.
Girl in the Window.
it ended up being so much more, and it was just a curious movie. It's just, Todd Haynes just makes his movies like you want a seasoned filmmaker to make his movies. It's the actors perform so well with, his script and with his directing. And we get so much from Natalie Portman, Julianne Moore, and out of absolutely nowhere, Charles Melton gave maybe a top 3 performance of the year, in my opinion. Just so much heartbreak in his character. And it's a super, the story is loosely based off of a real life story, where a teacher has a relationship with one of her underage students, and it's kind of built around that. And Natalie Portman just plays this wicked character, kind of taking a shot at method actors.
Yep.
And also, giving them some respect as well. But it's so interesting. It's thrilling. It's so funny at points, but like in points where you don't expect it to be. It's kind of got everything. This one really, really surprised me and blew me away. Absolutely loved it. So May December is my 7.
Yeah, it keeps you off kilter for sure. It really does kind of keep you off balance. And I was surprised by this movie in many ways. The score of this movie, Kirk knows, I've already talked to him about this. The score of this movie is absolutely unhinged. It is. I could not believe my ears as I was watching it. I was like,
and the score is tied into, because we're spoiler free, but it ties into so much of, there's a bit of a reveal towards the very end of this movie, and it ties into a certain stylistic choice there. And I thought the score was so interesting. I enjoyed the score personally. But
it felt David Lynchian to me, in many ways, but especially that. And so it made me uncomfy in a good way. It's not on my top 10 list.
It's also not on my top 10. However, I thoroughly enjoyed my watch of it.
Yeah, I agree.
Thoroughly. I also love the debate online of, is this a comedy? I thought it was a drama. Or, no, it's absolutely a comedy. I fall in the lines of more it's drama.
It's a satire in the sense of it's a non-funny satire. Like, they're making fun of something in a way that doesn't make me laugh.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like definitely not a comedy. They had to shove it into, but it does have its funny moments. It's like, I don't want to spoil, unless somebody might have the killer on their list, but like, to me, the killer is one of those where that movie is 100% hysterical.
Yes.
But you need to view it that way, because obviously it's a character to not take seriously, but totally get that. Yep. But the Golden Globes are nonsense and trash, and it's fine.
And that category is always garbage. I think they do it on purpose. They just want people to talk about it.
That's the only way they get people to watch anymore.
All right, Kirk, what's your number 7?
My number 7 was Taken.
Oh, good. What was it?
Perfect.
It's gone. I don't have a number 7. It was John Wick.
No, that's what I'm saying. Just say what it is.
Oh, it was John Wick 4.
John Wick, got it.
Sorry.
All right, so now we're on to 6, because my 7 was The Holdovers.
Okay.
And I'm going to start this one just because screw the order and I want to talk first. My number 6 is Anatomy of a Fall, which is a French film, a wonderful little procedural. I know, Stefano, you talked about it on the podcast actually last time you were on, and I had not seen it to that point. This movie is so interesting. I love when a movie uses the audience's biases against itself. That's just really smart writing, and there's a lot of that going on here. It's really smartly written. It's really sharply acted, and it's just, again, I think this movie is toying with your psyche in so many ways. Like, it's like, I know exactly what you're gonna want in this moment, but I'm not gonna give it to you. I'm gonna instead kind of incept this thought into your mind for you to ponder. So it's definitely thought provoking. It's gripping. I mean, it's like impossible to take your eyes off of, and I just really ended up loving it. I don't know what more to say about it. I ended up buying it on digital because I was like, I have a feeling this is going to be good. And I'm glad I did, because now I have it forever and I can rewatch it.
Fantastic. Stefano, what do you think?
I think I have Anatomy of a Fall at number 6 as well.
Wow. Oh, nice.
I echo everything you just said, and also what I said in the previous episode, I guess, spoke on. Just absolutely amazing and interesting, and also the most unique use, and probably the only use in cinema history, of a marimba version of
PAMP.
Yes. Absolutely phenomenal.
Oh man, it's like haunting my dreams.
Yeah, it's stuck in my head now. And also, we recently posted about favorite dog or animal performances in a movie or a show.
Yeah.
The dog here that plays Snoop in Anatomy of a Fall was just phenomenal.
Epic dog acting performance.
Oh my goodness.
Epic, Kirk. It's awesome.
Oh, so Kirk, man. If you haven't seen it, you must.
I have not. That is one on my list that I've not seen. I'm
gonna. You can go to Cam's house and watch it. He bought
exactly.
I'm here now. I'm gonna go watch it.
Yeah,
Goodbye,
Kirk's
guys.
actually not leaving. He's just gonna stay the night. He's gonna be here till 4 a.m. watching it in my basement while I sleep. All right. What are we on? So we just did 6. Me and Stefano have the same one. So Kirk, we need your 6.
Excellent. My 6, I guarantee you, is not on your guys' list. Are you ready?
Yes.
It's a documentary that released in January of 2023. Are you ready?
Yes.
It is called Still, a Michael J. Fox movie.
Oh, yeah.
This movie, it's a shame that it released on Apple TV Plus because not everyone has it. In fact, I just unsubscribed to it, and then because I bought gift cards, I got a free renewal subscription to April for Apple TV Plus. But
Love it.
Again, it's called Still, a Michael J. Fox movie. It's about his entire successful career. It's about his the moment that he understood that something was changing in his life. He had a very hectic life in show business, and then all of a sudden, and very successful, and then it came crashing down. I followed this story as a child when it broke, when he first was diagnosed, when he expressed that he had it, and then when he expressed that he was leaving, when he retired from Spin City, the TV series, and seeing the journey from behind the scenes was so powerful. I'm getting chills right now. I was just floored by, first of all, his perseverance because he's such an underdog. I view myself as an underdog in the world, and I love stories like that so much. And how he just not overcame it, because obviously he's still going through it, but that he's surviving it day in and day out. Every brutal and terrible struggle that he's gone through, he just throws on the table and talks about all of his successes and his greatest losses and his greatest successes through it. And this is such a powerful movie, and it absolutely had to get on my top 10.
Wow. That's a ringing endorsement. Do you view yourself as an underdog because of your Irish heritage?
That's exactly why, actually.
I thought so.
And I didn't realize that till late in life, but then I'm like, there's not a lot of people that look like me.
It's in your blood, man.
Yeah. It's people always forget about the Irish. They just get cast to the side.
Well, a documentary at number 6 is surprising. And I like it. Change it up a little bit. I watch documentaries, but I never think of them whenever I do these sorts of exercises. So maybe I should. I'm being ignorant. Okay. We're at midway.
5 now.
Right. We're just going to power through.
That was my number 6.
That was your 6.
You guys matched 6s.
We matched 6s. So we are at 5. And you... This is getting so crazy. I knew it would.
Well, let me step in. My 5 has already been discussed. It was Maestro, so I'm off the table.
Okay. My 5 is not. I'm going to go.
Go, please.
I'm going to go. Yes. My number 5 is The Boy and the Heron, the Hayao Miyazaki directed film that released this year. Man, I feel like I need to give the same kind of ringing endorsement that Kirk just did because it was beautiful. And this movie, The Boy and the Heron, touched me. It was such a deep and beautiful way. I think this story is interpretive, as his films often are, but I think that this movie, I just really clicked with it, and I viewed it as when things in your life are out of control, you want to escape and you want to find your happy place where you can get things under control, but that's not always the right thing to do. Some things are not in your control, and this movie really personified that in a way that Hayao Miyazaki only can do. With his amazing animation style, I thought it was gorgeously animated. I reviewed it on the podcast. I gave it extremely high marks. I just really loved it, and it's the kind of warm, just comforting film that I've come to expect from Studio Ghibli and Hayao Miyazaki, and I was thrilled that I got to see it in theaters. I've never seen one of his films in the theaters before. And it was really just, when I look back and think about the movies I saw in theaters, this theater experience ranks very highly because it was packed full. I was with my nephews. It was just everybody was very engaged, and it was really lovely. So number 5, The Boy and the Heron.
Beautiful. Stefano, is that on your top 10?
Cam, I think, broke into my house and saw my notebook list.
No way.
The Boy and the Heron is my number 5.
No way.
And of course, I echo everything that you said on that. And I also want to touch on and it's a theme through all of Miyazaki's movies, is he is the absolute best at just letting scenes last a little longer than most viewers are comfortable with, just to kind of let you take a breath. Just kind of enjoy the beauty of it, enjoy these characters, enjoy the pastures, and let's wait a moment for the next scene. Because, part of the reason we're watching these movies is to just kind of escape for a little bit. And the world he builds here is, one of the most memorable and one of my favorites out of any of his ever. And I love that you talked about the just movie-going experience of it, because with me, as I mostly do, went to see this by myself. And while the movie has its sad moments, it's not an inherently fully sad film. Mm-hmm. But when I left and it was over and I was walking in my car, I just felt so sad, because that was the only time I would have seen that movie and been in that world for the first time ever.
Yeah.
Right? And just leaving that behind on the walk to my car was sad to me, but that's the whole point. And it was just beautiful. So
yes.
Absolutely loved it. And
I love that.
The English dub was phenomenal.
So good.
As so many people are talking about.
Yeah, shout out to G-Kids. G-Kids killed it.
Unreal. So, yep. Boy and the Heron.
This was not on my list. However, just a reminder that Cam and I, mostly me, failed you in our last episode, that I was supposed to give you a review of Howl's Moving Castle as...
in last episode, I said at the end of the movie... At the end of the review, I'm going to tell Kirk what movie he has to watch for Animation Station, and we'll talk about it next episode. And then I never said the movie, but I told Kirk he has to watch Howl's Moving Castle, and I think you did.
And I did.
All right, so next episode,
I'm going to talk about it next episode. So
next episode, Kirk's Animation Station.
Yeah, I'm gonna have props. I'm gonna have costumes. Yes. So be there.
That's so great. Kirk, was your 5 already picked? Is that right?
My 5 was Maestro.
Okay.
My 4 was Killers of the Flower Moon, also taken off the board.
And your 3 was talked about too.
And my 3 was Holdovers.
So you're
I'm
parked.
just waiting on top
you're
2
for a while.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to listen to that for a bit.
All right, Stefano, give us your 4, so I don't steal another one from your list.
Sounds good. And my 4 was my number 1 for a bit. It was my number 2 for a very, very, very long time. And it ended up moving back to 4, but for no fault of its own. Because, like I said, very strong. Your number 4 is Past Lives. And that was my first review, my first contribution to Popcorn for Breakfast was my review on that movie. And, it's another one of those just subtle beauties. And I think that, Cam, you compared it to last year's After Sun, where it's just kind of the soft-spoken, interesting story about characters, and you kind of just take it for what it is. There's no, huge, groundbreaking event that takes place that completely changed everybody's lives. There's nothing like that. There's no huge showy performances, but there's a bunch of really delicately handled situations, and a super interesting situation where, somebody might see this movie on the face and think it's this movie about this love triangle, right? Because we have our main character, and who's married, and an old, best friend and, crush comes back into her life. So you're like, oh, this might be one of those types of movies, but really it's just a story about these 3 people and how this very specific type of life event can change things or not change things, and how to deal with it, and how, and what kills me too is I'm always one of those people that I'm a big person on butterfly effect, how one thing affects the other thing, right? I get into my head about that all the time. And this is one of those, well, what if I would have stayed back home in Korea? What if I would have, seen out a relationship with this person? How would my life be different? Would it have been better? Would it have been worse? That's kind of, for you to decide.
Yeah, and it handles it in such a unique way. Past Lives is actually number 3 on my list.
All right.
So it handles it in a really unique way, and in a way that I didn't think it would. But for me, more than anything, what I really like about this movie is just kind of what it represents in the global film going landscape. Like, here we are, we have a movie that's half in Korean and half in English, and everybody's just chill. This movie is being seen by tons of people. It's going to get probably nominated for some awards. It's doing well in terms of critical acclaim. And I just love that because I think that a few years ago that just really wasn't the case. And I credit, movies like Parasite for really changing people's viewpoint. I love that, like, in my top 10, there are, foreign language films that are not in my primary language. And I don't think any differently about that. It's so much fun. Like last year I had Decision to Leave, which is entirely in Japanese. Drive My Car, same thing. So it's just really exciting. Actually, I think Decision to Leave is Korean, but either way, it's really cool that we are here now and can have access to films from other countries sooner. And this movie is not is an American film, but I'm just saying it's really cool that we can see movies that just switch back and forth. They aren't worried about, we can't do a movie with subtitles, or we can't do a movie with this, because they know that the consumer is there and there are people there who will watch it. So we're just getting access to a lot more cool stories now. And I'm super thankful for that.
Yeah. And there's always, go ahead.
No, go Kirk.
There's always the fine line between like streaming and theater. Try to see movies in theaters as best as you can. But as far as accessibility,
yes,
we never saw these 5 years ago.
No,
they just were like, all right, that's the foreign films. Hopefully we can buy it online one day. And now we have direct access to it so much faster.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And what I was going to quickly say was Celine Song, who wrote and directed this was her first movie.
Yeah. Unreal.
Writing and directing it. And it's just unbelievable that, now the stakes are so much higher, it seems, because we're getting these types of things as somebody's first movie. And it was just exciting to see that, add someone else to that list of movies to look out for in the future.
Oh, for sure.
Beautiful.
For sure.
Beautiful.
All right. So
that was Stefano's number 3. That was your number
1.
This
is number
my
4 and my 3. So now we're on 3. Stefano's 3 is spoken for. Your 3 is spoken for.
Yep.
What was your 4, Cam?
Oh, my 4. You're right. Yeah. My 4. We're on 4 still, and I have a 4. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is my 4. Just blown away by what these guys have done with this series. I remember seeing the first trailer for Into the Spider-Verse and thinking, as a Spider-Man fan, thinking that looks cool, and being familiar with the Miles Morales character, thinking, I can't believe they're doing this. This is awesome. I didn't see it coming together that quickly. I thought, Miles is a really cool character in the comics, and people seem to take to it really fast. But Spider-Man is such a iconic character, and Peter Parker and all this. So I just didn't see there being a Miles Morales-centric story that soon. And to do it in this medium, and then to see the film and be like, what? Like, my head is exploding. I can't believe what's happening. And then to follow it up with this sequel that is so bomb and just, man, it does so much so well. And the fact that they just up the ante in so many different ways with the animation, different layers going in different frame rates, and the sound mixing and everything is just a gorgeous technical achievement from an animated film. So The Boy and the Heron and Across the Spider-Verse, back-to-back animated films in my top 10. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Fantastic. Stefano, is that up there on your top 2?
It's not in my top 2, top 3, but it was very high on my list. I had it at, I think, 18. And echoing everything Cam said, just phenomenal. And, it's because so many kids love Spider-Man, what's exciting was for kids that were able to see it, they're seeing this super extravagant and awesome animation style that they may not have seen, watching something like the Minions or something like that. So it's introducing them to that world of, what else is out there that looks like this, and it was really exciting. So phenomenal, of course.
A couple of weeks ago, for my birthday, I just got this hooked up. They're called GoV LED backlights for my TV, and it has a camera, and it watches your television and matches the color.
Oh, yeah.
And it blows it up behind the screen. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I got this incredible toy. What movie am I going to turn on? And my kids are like, turn on the Spider-Verse movie. I'm like, okay. And we turned on Into the Spider-Verse. I'm like, what scene should I do? My kid's like, where the collider blows up, Dad, of course. And so I turn on the first one, and all of the colors are swirling around the back of my TV, and I can't wait to turn on.
And the camera burst into flames.
Yes, exactly.
And it was ruined.
Oh my
goodness. You're getting a bunch of ads served to you about stuff you're talking about in your living room.
Exactly. I made a horrible decision.
What a tragic story.
I'm returning it tomorrow.
That's awesome. I need to get one of those because that's the next step for me.
Oh my gosh, it changed my life, and it's only been 2 weeks, and I'm so happy with it.
I love it. Number 3. I think My number 3 is Spoken For. I had Past Lives. You had Holdovers. Stefano, do we know your 3?
We don't know my 3.
Oh, here we go.
Here it is.
All right, my number 3, the most recent movie I've seen, I believe, Poor Things is my number 3. The Yorgos Lanthimos movie, and I know this one had so much hype around it coming out of festivals this past year, because we know that when we're getting a Yorgos Lanthimos movie, we're getting the most wild thing you'll see that year. And with this, it's potentially his most wild, his most, just extravagant. And it was exactly what I hoped for, exactly what I expected in some ways. But, all of it was so good. It was, of course, the story of this brain surgeon doctor kind of reanimates somebody back to life. And that character is, Bella, played by Emma Stone. And Emma Stone, I've never seen an actress so committed to just this role while, unfold on screen. She's just absolutely ridiculous. She's hysterical. Her physical acting in this is just ridiculous. She has basically an infant's brain in this adult body to start off with, and she's trying to figure out how to walk. And it plays for, physical gags, but also just amazement, because you've never seen anything quite like it. It's absolutely bonkers. The production design I also want to touch on. And one frustrating thing about the Academy Awards and all of this is when something in the technical categories obviously stands out early on, it seems like that's set in stone. So with Barbie, that seems to be set in stone because Greta Gerwig created this amazing world with the Barbie set. And I think we talked about some of my hesitancies with that one. I think were a lot of the confinement actually of the sets. But after I saw Poor Things, I was like, this is sensational. Yeah. And the production design is sensational. The costumes in this are sensational. And I think it might lose out both of those two to that movie, but I just wanted to touch on those specifically for Poor Things because it was awesome. Hysterical Mark Ruffalo, unhinged, hilarious, amazing performance. Good Lord, Mark Ruffalo.
Oh, good. It was one of his good movies. I didn't see it,
really,
but I'm so glad it was
good. He's on a heater right now. He's crushing it.
So absolutely love this. Moving, funny, kind of weird. It was weird, but I loved it so much.
Kind of weird, I would say, is an enormous understatement.
Don't watch this with your parents.
Definitely not. I saw this at 2, and I almost invited my mom to go see it with me, and I was like, thank goodness I didn't do that, because there is some content. The majority of the film, yes, but I had this at number 2. I love this movie.
Wow.
I saw it and I was like, I was in amazement of it. Yorgos, is obviously he's a legend. He does so many thoughtful and unique things. And I have to admit, at the beginning, I was like, where are we going with this? Where are we going? This is crazy. But as it starts to come together, it comes together as a really, really thought-provoking satire, and one that is this is what, in my Letterboxd review was crazy for this movie, but just almost as crazy as the movie. But it's this is what a satire is to me, this movie. It's something that invades your mind. It goes to places that are so funny and so zany that it lowers your walls to makes you vulnerable to and open-minded to new thoughts. And then it inserts a thought into your head without you knowing it. And then you go, oh, this is what they're trying to say. I might agree with that. I don't know. This to me is what a satire should be. We get told a lot of movies are satires that are just beating you over the head with their theme. And I'm to me, that's not satire. I it's just not. And this is, and it's spectacular. Totally agree with your point on the production design, the cinematography, the lighting, the costume design. It's checks a ton of boxes. The acting performances are insane. I loved it, so I had it at number 2.
Beautiful,
awesome, and it tells its obvious story of female empowerment, but tells it in a fun, interesting way that doesn't serve it to you on out of a cough syrup bottle into a spoon and shows it in your mouth like when someone gives a 5-minute monologue in a movie.
Yep. Thank you for saying that, because I'm sure we'll get annihilated.
A very pink saturated monologue in a movie. Would you say that, Stefano?
Maybe.
I'll be honest. I wanted to love that movie hard, and there's so much good about Barbie that's really so good to me. And I've heard some people say to the contrary, the America Ferrera monologue is the best part of that movie. I've heard, I think Jim Cameron said that, which that is what it is. But He's a character. To me, that's where that movie dies. To me, that's where that movie becomes ineffective. And I just think like, I think it could be on this list if they had just made it a true satire, not made it a soapboxy, preachy movie about things that we already know. And the fact that it comes from the literal toy corporation that makes these toys is the one making the movie. It just it really tonally falls on deaf ears after all of that. That's my opinion on it. But to the people who love it, I'm glad you love it. I think that's great. It's just, there's a reason. Like that to me is not a satire. Poor Things is a satire to me.
Well, my number 2 is Barbie, gentlemen, so I'm so glad that you're here.
Have we talked about your number 2?
Not yet, no.
We haven't talked about Stefano's number 2. Nope. We know my number 2. Kirk, perfect. Why don't you give us your number 2 and then we'll go to Stefano.
All right, my number 2, gentlemen. I don't want to mess it up, so hold on. I got to get back to my spreadsheet. Hold on.
Kirk doesn't know. He's pulling these out of a hat.
Kangaroo Jack.
Yes. Kangaroo Jack returns. This one, I absolutely love this director, and I don't care what you think, anyone. My number 2 pick is Flora and Son from Mr. John Carney. If you've seen Once, if you've seen Begin Again, if you've seen Sing Street, this is his latest and greatest musical depiction of just the human condition. Jack Rayner, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and many other actors that I should know their names by memory. But every time this man puts out a movie, every time I'm like, maybe it'll be good, maybe it'll be bad. And it's always perfect. He has a 100% just streak of absolute bangers. Every song in every film is perfect, and this is no less. There's a certain beautiful magic that he creates with the camera and the music and the characters, and you have to have all three. If you just do one or the other, it's like, okay, you did the thing, but as soon as you put all three in motion together, you are just out of this world. And I don't know how he does it. Every time I go into it thinking, it's going to be similar to the other movies he's already done, he's going to pull the same tricks. No, it's always different. And it's always in a new location. And I don't understand how he's so cultured and so good at music and so good at understanding people. Flora and Son has my heart, and I hope it has yours too when you get to see it.
I like that movie a lot. It was good. Good movie.
Love that movie as well. It was just, I mean, like, I agree totally with, Carney movies, and it makes it sound like movies made by
Carney's. I love, Nightmare Alley.
Yes. But it was, I remember seeing Sing Street in theaters and being just so floored after seeing that. But this movie's also, obviously, it has so much heart. It's so funny.
Very funny. Very funny.
So many laugh out loud moments, like when she's interacting with her son and they're like about to make this music video. And it's just some of the funniest moments of the year for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, it's good. All right, Stefano, what do you have at number 2?
At number 2, I have All of Us Strangers.
Ooh.
And I am, I know this one has not been released wide yet, so that's a huge bummer. I was fortunate enough to see it at the St. Louis International Film Festival. I know it's played at a bunch of film festivals. It's released limitedly in New York, LA, and all that, and which is a bummer because unfortunately, it's how it works with campaigning for awards and all that. If this was released a little more widely and it was seen a little more, then the conversation around it would be much different. About awards and all of that. But this movie just floored me emotionally. It's a story that's told in such a weird way. It's almost a fairy tale, and you don't get that too much from the trailer. And I made sure to read all the summaries before I spoke on it because I didn't want to spoil anything. But it is known that our main character, played by Andrew Scott, his parents have passed away, and he sees them as they were when he last saw them, but he is an adult now. And that's something that I didn't quite put together with the trailer, but that is its known summary it gave out. And so basically he lives in this apartment building. He's by himself. He meets Paul Mescal, his character. And, he's a writer. So he's kind of writing the story. And it's just this story of him reconnecting with his parents and telling them these things that he wasn't able to tell them in all of these years in between when they passed and now. And he's able to connect with Paul Mescal's character. And it's just it's gut wrenching. It's it's one of those where you try to find things in yourself that these characters are dealing with or struggling with, and you kind of brings it out onto the screen. The performances were amazing. Andrew Scott. I know it seems like we have a consent. It seems like there's a consensus for lead actor nominations, and then there's that fifth spot. You have Zac Efron, Jeffrey Wright. Andrew Scott has gotten some love, and Andrew Scott, I think it'd be a shame if he wasn't, in the field. Blew me away. Paul Mescal, of course, brings another ridiculous performance, and then Claire Foy and Jamie Bell were also in this, by the way, surprise, and they're both amazing. Super artfully directed, beautiful, sad, and I just beg everybody to watch it when it comes out.
Nice. Oh man, I can't wait for that one. That's gonna be good.
Yeah,
I'm hyped about that. All right, number 2.
Oh,
Kirk.
Mine's gone, right?
Oh yeah, yours is
mine
gone.
was Florence,
and mine's gone because mine was Poor Things.
Beautiful.
So we're on 1.
We're on 1
for
all 3 of us. Is that right?
Oh my gosh. It feels like we might be on a collision course here. That might seem a little.
Do we
obvious.
all have the same one?
Let's reveal the first letter in our number 1.
Okay, go.
Am I going? Wait, Stefano, go.
My let's see. It starts with the letter
Z. It starts with the letters
O.
The letter O. Okay.
O.
Cameron.
O for me as well.
Mine also starts with the letter O.
All right. So it's
Oppenheimer.
All right. Who wants to go first on Oppenheimer?
Our guest, Stefano.
I've talked a lot. I've talked a lot recently. Someone else can go.
I'll go.
Okay.
I'm selfish. I'll take it. I think I'm excited about Oppenheimer. I think Oppenheimer is one of those movies that you see and you're like, yep, this is it. This is essential cinema. This is something that is new. This is something that feels different. This movie, I talked a lot about it when it came out. I think one of its defining characteristics is how it just kind of transcends genre. It talks about things historically in a way that people a lot of times just aren't really, they kind of color within the lines, I think, a lot of times on this like historical nonfiction type stuff, particularly as it relates to wars. A lot of it's just like finding cool stories about a war, finding cool stories from the past and talking about it. This is, let's look at it through the lens of J. Robert Oppenheimer, his whole experience, start to finish, with this whole Manhattan Project and everything that happened during it and after it, and not pulling any punches. I mean, at times this movie is horrifying. At times it's, I don't know, you walk out of it and you're like, oh my, like, what did I just see, and how does that make me feel about what's happening in the world? I mean, it just really makes you think about things in a way that I certainly wasn't expecting, and I don't think people typically expect when they walk into what they think is just a biopic. This movie is so much more than that. The performances are unbelievable. The scale of it is so impressive, and I think eventually that's going to be what puts this movie over the top and why it wins, in my opinion, Best Picture at the Academy Awards, and why Christopher Nolan should win Best Director regardless. It's a masterwork. It's unbelievable, and it's one of those things where putting this at number 1, I'm like, yeah, it's number 1.
Yeah.
I don't feel any. I'm not wavering in the slightest bit. I think the gap is decently wide. I mean, it's number 1.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I agree with all that, Cam, and I know I didn't really talk to both of you about it much and my thoughts on it, but it is everything you said, and the central performance from Cillian Murphy is mesmerizing, really. He just embodies it so much and so well. Obviously, we all know he tells so much with his eyes and with his expressions, and I just love it so much. I do hope he gets honored for his work on it because it was sensational, and the movie was built around him and made for him. Christopher Nolan knew he was the one for it. And the supporting cast, you have all these amazing actors and actresses throughout. Because my wife is obsessed with Cillian Murphy for good reason, as I am, watched a bunch of the press tour. And one thing that really stuck out to me was, Florence Pugh. And it was shocking to some to see Florence Pugh in such a small role. And Christopher Nolan called her and offered her the role and apologized first and foremost for having such a small role for her, but he knew he wanted her to be a part of it. And she said, it doesn't matter how big or small the role is, I want to be part of it. And I think it was pretty telling, with the caliber of actors and actresses that come on to his movies. Just amazing. And I watched I was lucky to get the 4K, and I watched the behind the scenes. and just watching him put this stuff together and how much he cares about the craft of filmmaking. And, some call him full. I don't think he's full of himself. I just think he cares about it that much. And he wants to give the audience the best possible version of this movie that they can watch. Because if you watch this in 70 years, it's going to look just as good as it did when we saw it in theaters.
Yes.
So.
Yes, and this was the film that invented new technology for it to be made, and the amount of care that was taken for this film, and the fact that every living actor on Earth was in this film, it's just so incredible how it was brought together, and you cannot do that unless you have such a finite vision for it and the resources and the passion for it. And Oppenheimer should sweep at the Academy Awards for that reason alone.
Yeah, I think I'd be shocked if it didn't win quite a few awards. It's going to be interesting.
We should see best five. We haven't seen the top five.
Yeah, the big five. Yep.
Hasn't happened since One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So I would be very happy if this could be the next time it happens.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, that's top 10s, guys. Before we bounce out of here, let's just quickly go through our top 10s, bottom to top, so that we can have it succinctly here for everyone who's been listening along for this very long show. We thank you for sticking with us. We had to get all of our thoughts out, and I'm glad that we did. I had number 10, John Wick Chapter 4, number 9, Maestro, number 8, The Iron Claw, number 7, The Holdovers, number 6, Anatomy of a Fall, number 5, The Boy and the Heron, number 4, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, number 3, Past Lives, number 2, Poor Things, and number 1, Oppenheimer. Kirk?
My number 10, Dungeons & Dragons. Number 9, Super Mario Brothers. Number 8, Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Number 7, John Wick 4. Number 6, still a Michael J. Fox movie. Number 5, Maestro. Number 4, Killers of the Flower Moon. Number 3, The Holdovers. Number 2, Flora and Son. And number 1, Oppenheimer.
And Stefano.
All right. Number 10, I had The Iron Claw. Number 9, Killers of the Flower Moon. 8, The Holdovers. 7, May December. 6, Anatomy of a Fall. 5, The Boy and the Heron. 4, Past Lives. 3, Poor Things. 2, All of Us Strangers. And number 1, Oppenheimer.
I love it.
I love that we all had Oppenheimer as number 1.
We did, but
there's
there's a good mix in the middle there, which is what makes this fun. So I'm thrilled to see that. Thrilled that you guys could all be here. Stefano, thank you for joining us.
Of course.
As always. If you are watching this or listening and you have a top 10, hit the comment section. Let us know. We're dying to know. I look at these lists all the live long day on Twitter. I just love to see what my favorite critics are saying, what people who I didn't even know were cinephiles are posting on Twitter. Here's my top 10 movies, and I love to look at it. So please let us know. We're dying to share with you. You can let us know on Discord or anywhere in the comment sections on our various social media, and of course the YouTube video. Otherwise, thank you so much for being here. We have to give a special thanks, as always, to our executive producer, Ryan Spriggs, as well as the band Rhetoric, who created our original music, and our presenting sponsor, St. Louis Area Smoothie Kings. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next time.
Talk to you then.